Today I will talk. I will give you an overview about the data sources involved in the project, especially related with the workshop that we are having today. So I show you some data you can use today, but also other things that can be useful in general for your uh, activities also outside of this workshop. The Infra for Next Gen project cover data from the five major European cross-national survey infrastructure that are the European Social Survey, that is also the main institution involved in the project, and the European Value Studies that is represented by me, and the Generations and Gender Survey, the GGS, that is represented here by Julia. And there are also the ISSP and the EQLS, not that they are less relevant, but also for time constraints. Today we will focus just on the first three, plus Kronos, so the Cross-National Line Survey that is still part of the ESS, but we will see in a while why we keep it separate. So it's still the ESS, but it's not exactly the ESS. So today we will talk about these 3+1 research infrastructures, and there will be a lot of gifts for you. So you will see. First thing, why these surveys matter? So because first of all, they allows for cross-national comparability. So the same questions, the same items are repeated across time and across different countries. So it is very relevant, as also Wouters shown. So to have this information and the possibility to have this information studied across several contexts. And the data are typically cross-sectional, but in some cases we will have also longitudinal designs. So the same information repeated within the same individuals over time, not just within the same countries. And all of these survey infrastructure push the highest methodological standard possible. So everyone in principle is able to do some survey now with the internet and the possibility to share a link. But of course, this survey has to be high quality and representative of the population. So these institutions, the institution behind this some infrastructure, ensure that this is the case. So it is not just some survey fill out in a certain manner, but there are very high quality surveys. And all of these are open data, so freely accessible to everyone. And in terms of output, these are essential for social science research, so for your academic papers, but also from policy analysis. So not just for producing some paper, but in order to give some question that, at least in principle, are able to let's say sustain a change in real world by informing policies. And I will go in detail one of them, each one of them. So let's start with the European Social Survey, the ESS. That is can be defined it's a survey that provides high quality open access data measuring public attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. So survey data, of course, because it is what we are talking about, and we are talking about cross national variability, but of course the data are measured at the individual level. So you will find individual level variables with data sets that are organized with information at the individual level, covering European countries, cross-sectional. All the interviews are face-to-face, except during COVID we have in ESS 11, I guess, blended mode with also set completion because of the restriction of the COVID pandemic, of course, but usually the ESS is based on face-to-face interviews, and it started in 2002, and it takes place every 2 years. So far, we have 11 waves, and as said, everything is open. Here, just an overview of the countries and the time that each country had participated in the ESS round. So as you can see by now, almost all Europe is covered because some countries, of course, has joined all the 11 versions, all the 11 waves, the round, as they are called, some not, but in general, most of European countries so far had taken part in the study. And more specifically, what does the ESS study? So the main focus is on social and political attitudes, and we have trust in institution, democracy, immigration, welfare attitudes, and well-being. But and here we come to the distinctive traits. The most important distinctive traits is that we have a core module, so covering these set of variables that are repeated throughout the waves. But in each wave, we have a couple of rotating modules. So we have some modules that cover specific aspects that change in each wave. And it can be like in this case, that it is of interest today, for instance, climate change or environmental sustainability, or we had social inequalities in health or whatever. I mean, there is this rotating module that brings some additional quality and interest to the topic because it is not the same exact survey every year, but it changes. And the other distinctive trait is that, as said, the ESS push the highest methodological standards possible. So we can say that it represents the gold standard for the study of opinions and attitudes in Europe. Then we have the European Value Study, the EVS. It started in 1981. It is conducted every 9 years. So we have 5 waves. And the new one, the EVS 6, is on the field right now. So in 2026, we will have by the end of the year, by the end of the next year, we will have the sixth wave. As the ESS is a large cross-national service, but with a different focus. So it is not about attitudes and opinion, but is more focused on values, social values, and cultural change. So you can see that we have similar, in a way, survey infrastructure, but each one has a specific focus. Open data, of course, and also here we have basically almost every country in Europe participating in the EVS at least one time. In 2018, so way before we reached the peak of 47 European countries, it lowered a bit in 2017, the last wave available, 37, but still you see that a large number of countries is covered. And more in detail, what does the EVS study? So the main focus is religion, family values, work ethics, morality, political culture, social norms. So you can see that it is quite different from the ESS. They have some common items, of course, but there is a clear distinction of the topic as regards the topic of interest. So the distinctive trait of the EVS is that it allows studying long-term value change, and it is the reason why it is the EVS takes place every 9 years and not every 2 years. Of course, there are some economic constraints, of course, but the idea is that to study cultural change, you don't need such a, let's say, frequent monitoring because cultural and social change is low in its taking. So 9 years, it's probably enough. In this way, it allows studying long-term value change, and there is a specific interest in the cultural and normative dimension. In this way, the EVS is fundamental for the study of deep social and cultural change. And then we have the Generations and Gender Survey, GGS, that is, let's say, completely different from the ESS and the EVS. So it's part of the Generations and Gender program, and it is a longitudinal panel survey. So the other two were cross-sectional. This is longitudinal. The same individuals are in interview in different ways. So it is possible to study not only between countries variation, but also within individual variations. And so there's the possibility to focus on life course dynamics. And also the focus is different because we're not talking about attitudes, opinions, and cultural social change, but the focus is on demographic behavior. But as the other two, open data. So that's the common denominator of this survey infrastructure. We had with the GGS two big studies, GGS 1 and 2, and all consist of a number of waves. So in GGS 1 has 3 waves and took place between 2004 and 2012. And then the GGS 2 It has an enhanced study design with refined questionnaire and refreshed samples, and starting in 2020, it covers more than 28 countries. Also, in this case, you can see that many European countries are covered, but it is not limited to the study of European countries because we have also some countries outside, like some American countries, Australia, Central Asia, and other Asian countries. But of course, today we will focus on European countries. And the main focus, as said, is demographics, so fertility intentions and behaviors, partnership formation and dissolution, intergenerational relationships, work-family balance, and gender roles, and many other things. But these are probably the most important ones. The distinctive traits, as I mentioned, are the life course perspective and the possibility to study micro-level demographic processes. So the GGS is perfectly tailored for the study of familiar and demographic dynamics. I also made this table that s- sum up the information. So if we have to choose between these survey infrastructures, it can be useful to have a recap of the characteristics of each one. And in general, the question you might ask is, okay, but when specifically do I need to use which one? And here's a very synthetic guidance. So you might want to use the ESS when you need to study aspects like trust, democracy, and welfare attitudes. Not only, but this is probably the most important, um, the most relevant topics covered within the ESS. And when you want to compare countries on political attitudes, and when you need high methodological standards. Not that the other one has a low methodological standards, but one of the aim of the ESS is to push the highest methodological standards possible, and indeed is a part of the ERIC, the European Research Infrastructure Council. So that institution that that embrace all the institutions, all the infrastructure that has this aim of high standard in survey research. You can use the EVS instead when you are interested in studying long-term value change and when your topic is religion, morality, norms, and when you are interested in keeping tracks of cultural transformations. And the GGS instead when you study issues like fertility, partnerships, when you have a focus on life course transitions and intergeneral relation. I put some examples here below about some topics or specific issues you might want to study and you can study with these infrastructures, but the key things, the key aspect is that the infrastructure are not competing, they are complementary. So they take place in the same context, Europe, but they can, it is overlapping my slide. They complement each other. Indeed, this is one of the specific aim of the infra for next gen project. So to make all these infrastructure communicate and integrate between themselves. And here we start with the more, let's say, interesting part in terms of what can you do today with this data, because I will show you some tools, a website in which you can access this information. And so we can start with the inventory of survey items that has already been mentioned previously by Ruxandra. It is the core of the Infra for Next Gen project because we have all this information. So all the information from the survey data presented so far, plus the ISSP and the QLS, and we focus also on the Eurobarometer and also Kronos. And there's a plenty of information. We have really thousands of items that sometimes are shared between these sub infrastructure, and it might be difficult to search for these items. So suppose you want to start a research on one specific topic, and you have to decide which is the best data set, the best source of information for your study. And before our inventory, you had to go through all the sites, all the websites individually and download all the PDFs with the questionnaire, or find a table with all the questions. And sometimes there is even no track within each infrastructure if a question it is repeated over time or not. So our idea was to locate all items that have been asked cross-section in all these surveys, and identify the ones that are most pertinent to the objective of each pillar. And we are talking about the 5 pillars of the next generation EU program. And we produce an inventory for each pillar. And now I will show you the inventory. This is just a table summing up all the numbers. You can see, for instance, for the EQLS, we have 9 items as regards the green pillar, 18 for the digital pillar, and so on. And we have a total of more than 10,000 items, including the Eurobarometer that, of course, it's huge. But if you focus just on the 5 survey infrastructure that are directly involved in the project, so EQLS, CSS, EDS, GGS, and ISSP, we have more than 3,000 items. Here you can access this inventory online. It is on the Infra for Next Gen website, always free to use. And okay, it is just an Excel spreadsheet uploaded in our website in a nicest way to be navigated, and in a more also user-friendly way, because you have some basic filters. So here you have all these questions that we selected as being of interest for at least one pillar. And for each question, you have, of course, the response categories, the survey in which the question has been asked, and then the years, and of course, the wave that correspond to the years. So as you can see, for instance, for this question, that is the first one that appears when you open the inventory, you immediately understand that in the EQLS, it has been asked 4 times from ways 1 to 4. So coming to the topic that is of interest today. For instance, I want to know if there are some questions about climate change. I can just type climate change in the keyword list. This keyword box works as a exact wording, so not the topic covered, but in this case, we are searching for questions that include the exact wording climate change, but you can work with Boolean operators, so and, or, and the like. So I can filter it, and here I have all the questions in the inventory with the word climate change. And you can see that some are from the ESS, other from the ISSP, Eurobarometer, and the like. And I can have also different way of searching, so without keywords, but for instance, we are in the Make It Green pillar, so I can select and filter all the items that are pertinent to the Make It Green pillar. And if for some reason I know that in advance that I want to focus just on the ESS, for instance, I can filter, and you can play around and make all the combination you want. So you can select more survey, more pillar. I'm just clicking randomly, but it is just to show you the logic. So make it green and make it equal, and I can select the years, and I can also, for instance, make a combination of both. So search a specific pillar with a specific um, uh, keyword. So if I want to talk about energy, and it is one of the topics that Butter mentioned before, and that's all. So it's very easy to use, and I can focus on years. And you can also download the output as an XS file, or as a probably CSV file. And so pretty much easy to use, but fundamentally, if you have to explore all these data sources at once. So previously, you had to go to each website separately, and sometimes also to each separate PDF file for different waves. So it could take a long time, and now you can have a centralized search with this inventory. Then we have Gazy's search. So Gazy is a German data archive, repository of data for the social science domain. And here, for instance, you have the European value studies data. So if you go to the European Value Study website, you access to all the information, but it sends you back to this website, sorry, for what concerns the data download. You just need a login, but it's free. Everything here it's free accessible. And for instance, I just type European Value Studies, and here you can download, for instance, integrated data sets or country-specific data sets, but you can also search for variables. So, for instance, if I write climate change, I have all the variables involved climate change. But there is not just the European value study. In it, there are a lot of information. So you can expand your search beyond the survey infrastructure that I was talking before, because you have a lot of information. And also, if you have a small research team and you conducted a survey, you can upload it here. So the information on this data archive, it's really huge, and you can search by, as said, by topic, by keyword, by study, by variable, and whatever. Just play around, and this is a valuable resources that you can already use today for the workshop. Then we have the e-value tool that Roxandra mentioned before. Basically, this is a visualization of the European value studies. So all the information, I guess some of the information went within this tool, and it is possible to show the data with maps directly. So you don't need any statistical skills to download the data, import in a statistical software, and produce some table, because you just need to select the indicator you need, click, and it is possible to produce one or more maps. And this e-value tool was so much appreciated that in the context of the Infra for Next Gen project, we decided to have an e-next gen tool. So it is basically the same, but not just with the European value studies, but involving information from all the survey infrastructure involved in the Infra for Next Gen project. So the EVS, CSS, SSP, QLS, and so on and so forth. And it is very easy to use. You have this map. You can. So this is a work in progress. It is already accessible from the Infra for Next Gen website, but we are still working on it. But most of the Make It Green indicators have been already uploaded, so you can already use it for your today's exercise. So, for instance, you can see that there are some climate change related questions. For instance, they believe that climate change is mostly natural, and here is the total distribution of the indicator for 2023, but you can also have it for 2020. You just need to slide this time bar, and you can stratify your analysis by gender, age, education, urban, rural dimension, or a combination of these socio-demographic indicators. So, for instance, let's suppose we're interested in seeing young, high educated. Oh, there is no data for this group. I picked the wrong one. Age, 35 to 54, and you can see the maps, and you can also click on compare maps. So the screen splits in two maps, and so for the same question that was climate change mostly natural, I can have, for instance, the young one compared to the older one, and so you can see difference in the distribution. And if you pass your mouse over the countries, you can see the percentage for each country. So you can see that here is on the upper right part of the map, you have Norway, Sweden, and now Poland, and so on. And again, it's pretty easy to play around, so just go in it, and I'm sure that you will have no problem understanding more in detail how it works and how it can be useful. And then we have another important resource, that is the GGS teaching dataset. Probably not of interest for today's workshop, because it is not about it is not like these tools that are ready to use, but still we like to mention it here because it's a very important resources. Because as I mentioned, GGS is a longitudinal study. So especially if you are a young researcher at the beginning of your career as a academic, as a researcher in general, um, handling longitudinal data might be difficult at the beginning because you have repeated observations for each individuals, and with sometimes the data structure is difficult to manage. And for most of the data sets that are available for longitudinal studies, even if you download it from reliable sources and the data sets claim to be well prepared, sometimes you have to clean the data, make it suitable for research, and it can be difficult to do it. Indeed, the GGS provided these two teaching data sets, a basic level and an advanced level one, so a starter data sets and an advanced data set with more variables and information already split in life events. And it is provided in SPSS, data, and Excel formats. And here it is really ready to use for longitudinal analysis. So if you're interested in, if you want to start dealing with longitudinal analysis, this is a good starting point because you download something that is really ready to use. Again, probably not needed for today's workshop because we will ask you to do some more simple exercise with cross-national data sets and boundary associations, but we'll talk more in detail about this in a while. But keep in mind, because it's a very valuable resources for your for enhancing your data skills. And the last one we're talking about today is the ESS data portal, because on the ESS website, you can access both the ESS and Chronos data. And if you click on European Social Survey, I just click here, but don't worry because in the next slide that we will share with you, there is the world path you have to follow um, to go where I am now. So don't worry if I'm going too quick. Too quick, yes. So you can browse information by round or by country, and you can see where the country are. Uh, if the country has participated in each wave, or you can also browse by team. And you can see, of course, this one of the core modules that I was talking about before. So you can see that these modules are repeated from wave 1 to 11, while here we have the repeated modules that sometimes the rotating modules that sometimes have been repeated, otherwise they have been asked only once. And interesting, you don't need to download everything as concerned the ESS, but you can create your personalized data set, downloading just what you need. So for instance, suppose I'm interested in studying just Italy, so I can select just the Italian waves, just as an example. Oh, it was sufficient to click all the last one, or you can select all the 11, all the countries participating in ESS 11 and let's say ESS 5, and then you can select variables. So if you are interested in studies, media use and trust, you can select just the variables you want. So you don't need to download like thousands of variables and millions of observation. It is a very nice way to download what you need. And again, you just require a login also with a Google account, for instance, so you don't even need to subscribe to the website, that you can download it. But before download it, you can also do this very interesting thing that is to browse data. I don't find the link anymore. Anyway, Ruxandra will show you how to use the ESS and Chronos data portal, because there is a way to show data in a map or with a table, as we already did for the other surveys. Like for instance, as for the InexGen tool, you can do it directly here for the ESS with all the ESS information. And the last thing, here's the slide I was talking about with the information. The last thing we talk about today is Chronos. Then my presentation will be over and we will have a coffee. So keep strong. And what is Chronos? Because I mentioned a couple of times before, Chronos is part of the ESS but it's a different thing. So it's a web panel, but it's cross-sectional. So it is not a longitudinal panel. And we have respondents recruited from the ESS, and these respondents are interviewed again over time, but not with the same questions every time. That will make it a longitudinal pattern, but with different questions every time. That's why it's a cross-sectional panel. A very small number of questions are repeated, so there is a very small longitudinal component, but let's say that 95% is a cross-sectional panel, and it is a web panel. So it is not like the ESS that rely on face-to-face interviews, and it has started in 2017. I will here with a pilot study involving just 3 countries. That the pilot was a success. So there was a full Chronos study that was Chronos 2, mm, that was based on the ESS 10. So ESS 10 respondents were asked if they were willing to take part in this additional study, and they have been interviewed 7 times. And then in the context, that's what of interest today. In the context of the Infra for Next Gen project, we developed Chronos 3. So based on ESS 10 and 11, involving 11 countries, we had 5 waves focusing on the next generation EU teams. So we developed items, so questions directly related to make it green, make it digital, make it healthy, make it strong, and make it equal. The point of interest respect to the ESS is that it is possible to implement the questionnaire in a fast way, because there is a team directly working on it, and the possibility to administer the questionnaire online make it possible to go on the field soon. So it is not like the access that you have to wait every 2 years, but if you have a specific topic that is of interest in a specific moment, it is possible to organize a set of questions regarding it and go directly in the field with these questions. And this is, for instance, what happened with the Make It Digital for AI. So when Infra for Next Gen started, after a couple of months, AI became one of the most important topic in the Make It Digital topic, and so we were able, thanks to the flexibility of the instruments, to arrange some questions on artificial intelligence. Again, here is where you can download the Cron's data, and you have also the possibility to, and Alexandra will show you, to have some maps or graphs already online. And so for Kronos and ESS in particular, Alexandra will talk about it. Yes, that's the last thing I need to say. What is the difference between ESS and Kronos in terms of data structure? So in terms of survey design. So ESS is a repeated cross-sectional. The sample changes in each way. So the people that responds, that answers ESS1 are different from ESS2, different from the ESS3, and so on. But some questions are repeated, so the core module. And so it is possible to track temporal changes between countries, but only at the aggregate level. Instead, the Chronos is a cross-sectional panel, so the questions changes, but the people are the same. So as sum up in this table, if you look at the part below that regard Chronos, it is possible to merge data. So when you link data from different Chronos ways, you can put the same information for the same individuals side by side. So you can expand the number of variables in your data set. Instead, for the ESS, if you go to the upper part of the slide, it is possible just to append. So the respondents are different, and so you can just pile over new respondents with the same question. In terms of structure, that is the core difference between ESS and Chronos. So I also leave some fundamental documents here that, of course, are available on the ESS website, but I select some documents that can can be of interest today, so it is better to have it there.